Right, thanking God the Father, the Son, and the Spirit once again, this time for the way in which they help us set healthy priorities, a theme that we have talked about before. That I think Paul gives us a nuanced look at in this chapter, 2 Corinthians chapter 8, that I want to look at through the theme of the majors, understanding that it's a corollary to that principle of not majoring on the minors or not putting too much emphasis on small things in a way that can impede progress. And so, as he is moving seemingly closer to an understanding with the church at Corinth, one of the things that they can participate in together is the collection for the saints, something that they seem to have a similar perspective or a similar joy for. At least they did it once. And so in this chapter, Paul is reminding them that as they were enthusiastic about the collection before, maintain that enthusiasm now. As in the first 7 verses, he's going to give them a progress report saying that the churches in Macedonia have done just that, or they have proven themselves generous. In verse 2, a severe test of affliction that has come to some of the other brothers, or quite possibly some of the other churches. And that is the reason seemingly for this donation. But he's going to say, even in their lacking, meaning the churches in Macedonia, they had their own lack, but they still wanted to give anyway. He's going to say, so you therefore, in verse 6, do likewise, understanding that in verse 7, you excel in everything. As we mentioned before, they seem to be very talented and knowledgeable in his writings in 1 Corinthians. He's going to say, as you excel in those things, don't lack in in generosity as well. And so he's going to say, excel in this too. As in verses 8 through 15, he's going to say that he is writing this not as a commandment in verse 8, but since they, in verse 9, know the grace of the Lord Jesus, likewise, pay that forward. As it was said a few years ago, we can't really pay God back because he doesn't need us, but he does love plenty of people. And so we can help those people in times of need, not needing to go back through passages like Jesus' own summation in Matthew 25 of final judgment, the way we treated others when they were in various forms of need. In a lot of ways, shows the way that we would actually treat him. And so with that, he is saying, since you know the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, pay that forward at this time. Once again, not under compulsion, but because you have already demonstrated a willingness to do that. And so in verse 11, he's going to say, go ahead and finish up on that. Don't slack. As in verses 12 through 13, he is going to say, we are not writing so that you can, because they seem to be doing pretty well in Corinth, not so that you can take the burden away from other churches, but so that you can give to your potential the way that they have, so that there will actually be an equality in effort, even if there aren't an equality of means, my paraphrase, but he's literally going to say that there be maybe fairness in the giving, even if there is not fairness in the ability. He's going to make sure that nobody's overburdened beyond what their actual ability is. My paraphrase, of course, but read it for yourself. Anyway, with that, verses 16 through 24 are going to go on to talk about the administration, or the process by which they plan to go ahead and finish up the collection. Titus, seeming to be eager to go ahead and participate. Paul's going to make it a point to say in verses 16 and 17 that he is not going under compulsion, any more compulsion than Paul is putting on the church at Corinth to give. Titus seems to have a heart for the work, and therefore he is going to be the one who seems to be primarily responsible. But with him in verse 18, the brother who has become famous for his preaching is going to come along with them. It's kind of like an added treat or whatever, or maybe even an incentive. Definitely, once again, my paraphrase. But either way, that brother is not named. Makes me want to wonder if it's Apollos, because he was one who was known for his preaching, at least in the Acts. But guesswork aside, many were gifted. It doesn't have to be Apollos, but it seems to be someone who they would be eager to hear from. He is coming along as well. And the general theme is not necessarily so they can just get to hear some good preaching in exchange for the gift. It's so that the giving can be above board, as Paul is going to go on to say in verse 21, that they not only aim to be or to do what is honorable in the sight of the Lord, they want to conduct business in a way that is honorable in the sight of the brethren, or people as well, so that there are no questions about their integrity in collecting money for the saints in need, understanding, or those in need. Understanding that, he's going to go on to say that they are additionally sending another brother in verse 22 who likewise has seemed to prove himself trustworthy for that very reason. Once again, seeming to make sure that the administration of the gift is above board and agreeable in the sight of all involved. As he is then going to go on and close out the chapter in verse 24 by saying, go ahead and make sure that the nice things we've said about you and your eagerness to participate in this matter prove true. Reminding me, as we have mentioned in recent chapters, that Paul is writing this letter in a situation where his relationship with the Corinthian church is not necessarily all that stable yet. They seem like they're working to get there, and this chapter seems to give us another indication of the way that Paul is majoring in the majors. In spite of the fact that he has to write to them about some difficult things, he doesn't forget to talk to them about the things that they are doing well. And just as we talked about motives, when people understand that your motives, even when you have to say something tough, it's more like that whole concept of faithful are the wounds of a friend. They trust that you're not saying things to tear them down, but you're saying tough things in order, God willing, to build them up, whether it's in the short range or long term. And so Paul is adding to that insurance or reassurance that he gives them that the things that he's saying are coming from a good place by, once again, specifically talking about things that they do well with regard to giving. And going back to that first section, the first 7 verses, he is going to also talk about the need for the Corinthians to major in the majors, understanding that they have a lot of gifts, but their gifts might not be the most important thing in their relationship with God. Understanding that they need to keep the same energy that they have in terms of seeking excellence in their gifts, in seeking excellence in helping those brothers who are likewise, in need. And with that, they can reach that thing that we've talked about before, maybe low key from time to time, that thing that Jesus called his servants to in the Sermon on the Mount, when he said, be perfect. Maybe not in terms of under your own power being completely sinless, but as many ministers will tell you, it carries with it the connotation of being complete, not volitionally lacking in things that we just find disinteresting or things that we don't find it as easy to get motivated about. So with that, Paul is encouraging them, just as he's majoring in the things that they do well, he's hoping that they will major in being complete, with giving seeming to be just one area in which they can prove to be committed to excellence in everything that God has called them to do, which is why we've gotten into that habit of saying, my prayer for you is my prayer for me. God, please help us have the motivation and the endurance to be complete in everything that you've called us to do and to be.